Video game pricing. Look, it's something that some of us, admittedly, don't quite talk about enough, but it has been in the news quite a bit. I'm Jake, and I want to dive into this a little bit, just some personal opinion. So, in the US, during the rise of PS5 and Xbox Series X, US game prices saw a rise of an average $60 to $70. Also in the news, like 2 years ago, the Capcom president said game prices are too low, citing production costs and the market environments. Also, with how massive GTA 6 is, if you're online, you've probably seen a lot of people speculating that that game could cost something like $100. Chaos. More recently, Nintendo turned heads by being the first to officially push video game prices up, with headlining games like the new Mario Kart for Nintendo Switch 2 costing $80. And again, we're just talking about US prices here for context. That's where we are here. Other territories often have it even worse, with Nintendo being the first to seemingly open the floodgates to $80. There's an expectation in the gaming world that this is gonna become the new norm. It always feels like that, right? Like one of the big head companies does one thing and all the other big companies follow close behind to, reap the same benefits. It always feels like that, right? In these types of industries, like entertainment, movie tickets, CDs, games, it feels like prices are always relatively the same across the board, at least at launch or first release. Video games were $60 for a long time. Then they cost $70. And now they might cost $80. I don't like games costing $80. I know the history of game prices too, man. Like, they've been expensive. In the early days, they were really expensive. But this time around, I think things are different. Consumers are more educated about what exactly they're buying, while on the flip side, they're also more aware of how freaking ginormous and bloated some of these game companies and their productions have become. And they've gotten tired of that. Like, I can understand a lot of the why to this question, but I don't have to agree with it. With high game prices, every game purchase feels like life or death, man. Like, that game better be good because I just spent $85 on it, right? Here's the thing with things that are expensive sometimes outside of video games. A higher price often comes with an expectation of higher quality. Look, I know in this hellhole world, that's not always the case. Like, I've bought expensive things that are cheaply made and fall apart, but in a perfect world, that's how it works, right? The more something costs, the more it better be worth it. The more it's expected that, like, oh, I spent this much on this. This is pretty nice. And I think there should and probably will be more pressure on games to launch technically sound and fundamentally good. Ubisoft most recently delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows 1,000,000 times to seemingly get it right. And even if I personally didn't completely love the game, credit where credit's due, it released not as a buggy mess. It was technically solid, it performed well, and it seems to be doing well for them. It's like the companies finally realized they had to keep their thing in the oven. They had to fully cook the bread before they sell you the bread. This comes after a long line of high-profile, full-price AAA games releasing, and then feeling like unfinished, buggy, glitchy, and sometimes unplayable things. With a higher price tag now, potentially, I hope players begin to demand even more from quality. I mean, a well-made thing, not a 200-hour open-world game just bloated for the sake of the price tag and not actually the fun factor, but I'm just talking a good actual experience, a satisfying meal that works for you. Even with all that said, $80 is just a hard pill to swallow, and a lot of people are just instantly turned off. Look, $60 is a hard sell for people. $70 got really annoying, and $80 can, for some, feel like a bridge too far. Unless it's, of course, for like one of the best games ever made or something. Look, I just say all of this because players are already selective. There's a huge group of gamers out there that are happy to wait for a game to drop in price or go on Game Pass or PlayStation Plus or get it in a bundle or something like that. These are smart, selective buyers, and they're only going to be more choosy with higher prices. I think an $80 price will just push people away more. I think this subsection of game buyers is only going to grow. I think there's just going to be more and more people that just wait for Steam sales or embrace a subscription plan. Despite that, recently analyst Reese Ellis told GameSpot that, and I quote, "The market will bear it. plenty of gamers are willing to pay price points above $70, as shown by the high number of those willing to pay $100 for a few days early access. But personally, I think that even if that is the case, even if the numbers show that, we're still going to see a rise in even more frugal, thrifty gamers than ever before. But there are indications of like a proper way to do game pricing, just like a little bit here and there if you read the tea leaves and you pay attention. An across the board price increase might not be a 100% guarantee, or at least we hope so. Take these specific recent examples. So Expedition 33, it's one of my favorite games of the year, so I'm kind of biased, but this game released for a $50 price tag, a AAA game releasing with the price tag that AA games often embrace. This game was worth the price, and maybe even then some, depending on who you ask. Another big one, a bigger one, arguably, Mafia: The Old Country. This is just a big, fancy, shiny new AAA game with crazy graphics, voice acting, motion capture, big production value. This was published by a massive gaming publisher corporation. This is also releasing at $50, with the people behind this specifically acknowledging that they're trying something out here. With the 2K publisher quote, they said, "We think there's a large audience for compelling stories that don't require massive time commitments," and then pointing to their price reflecting that. So hell yeah, let's go. All right. Look, I wouldn't have brought this up if it wasn't from 2K. It's one of the massive game publishers behind billion-dollar franchises, as well as parent company Take-Two, of course, behind the upcoming GTA 6. For one of the big players, the big heavy hitters here, willing to be flexible and possibly experimental on pricing, I hope this isn't a fluke. In the early days, EA has also said here that they aren't yet charging $80 for games, but who knows when that's going to change. It's EA. Look, either way, what we're trying to say here, I know we're only pointing to a few small examples of AAA mixed pricing here, if that's what you want to call it, but I think it could be the start of an interesting shift. Lower price points can be exciting, can get more players to come out, get more players to at least take a second look. It can also lead to more competition. Launch your games in a good state. You think you can charge $80? Good luck. It better be worth it, man. There's another game over here on the corner that has good word of mouth, and it's only $45, and it kicks just as much ass. And again, don't get me wrong, mixed pricing has been around, especially in the indie and AA scenes, but to see it being more of a mainstream AAA thing, this could be good. I don't want to accept an across-the-board bulk price increase. I don't want, moving forward, every game to cost $80. Mixed pricing lets publishers and developers maybe, I don't know, experiment a little bit in an environment that is extremely risk averse. Usually they can stand out a little bit more, maybe find a player they wouldn't otherwise, and honestly, really, ideally, keep things competitive. If these publishers can figure out their production costs and their publishing and pricing models, there could be more potential. And even just looking back at some big flops, if the prices were tweaked, maybe they would have fared a little better. Everybody talked about how Concord should have been free to play. Yeah, right? But even going back, like maybe things like the Order 1886 should have had a price that more reflected that specific experience. Are publishers waking up to this? I don't know. Maybe some of them. And a recent example, Randy Pitchford, the head of Gearbox, who is developing Borderlands 4, he did recently get in hot water for saying to a fan on social media, asking about the new game being potentially $80, and I quote, "A, this is not my call. B, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school, working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen." Again, that main quote, the real bomb drop here is, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. Look, man, with him being like, back in my day in 91, like, me too, okay? I mowed lawns, I sold all my stuff, I sold my comic book collection and all my older games just to get my hands on a PlayStation. I did whatever it took. And even if, yes, Borderlands 4's production costs are reportedly double that of Borderlands 3, the average consumer does not care about that and doesn't necessarily want that cost passed on to them. What does that even mean to them? But like, what I'm trying to say here here is that the corporations, the executives specifically here, they shouldn't take us striving to buy these things or take our fandom for granted. They shouldn't expect us to just buy the thing. They shouldn't expect us to just grovel. They should work to earn it. And we've always talked about good games, you know, and like merit and people just buying good things, yes, but also maybe the price factor should work to earn it as well. You know, like 2 different shoemakers make different shoes and sell them at their stalls for their own chosen set price. I'd love to see more of the bigger publishers embrace this idea. If a game like Expedition 33 can launch at $50 US and blow everyone away and apparently be a success, maybe this can be a teaching moment and maybe a little bit of a sign of things to come. Could you imagine a world where all of the big headlining exciting games, every single one is announced and then there's a debate of how much it's actually going to cost? If there is a range from say $40 or $50 to $80. As a person who buys games, but also just as like a spectator, I would love to see games just come in at different prices. Leads to interesting conversation, but again, the biggest thing is more purchasing power, more purchasing decision making, more options, all that stuff. Anyway, ultimately the question in this video, is this the right way for game pricing? I think it's a step in the right direction. There will always be people out there that just think every video game should be free, and then there will be people who say, you lazy bum, get a job and pay $90 for that US game. But I think the reality is somewhere in the middle, so let me know what you think down in the comments. With Nintendo launching Mario Kart for $80 in the US, are you paying for that? Are you paying more for games in other countries? Have you not paid full price for a game in a long time? Do you just buy all your games on Steam sales or somewhere else? Let's talk down in the comments. If you like this video and you like just kind of chatting with us with games and stuff, clicking the like button does help us out. We put out videos every single day, man. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.